Um, Today, we shall be talking about introduction to project management, and this is part of the content that we shall be discussing for today's lecture. And just like the way we discussed in the other lecture, we talked much regarding project planning and management, but today we shall be focusing on that. And let me also remind you guys that you need to read different types of books. Among the books that you may find yourself reading, the project management book that talks about the system approach to planning, scheduling, and controlling. You can read that one. And also you can read the Chandra book written by Chandra. It's about project planning, analysis, financing, implementation, and reviewing. And also you can read project risk books. You can also read economic analysis of agricultural project written by Price Gittinger. You will see that is very important for you. And there are so many types of books that are available in the library. You need to consult most of the time, visit your library, and also you need to visit online library. You will find it's very useful for yourself to start reading and preparing for material and developing competency as far as project planning is concerned. In the context of projects, for any planner, it is very important because this is the only area where you find your planning becomes very useful, and it has hands-on. You need to translate your economic planning issues into actions through developing different types of projects at micro level and macro level. So it is useful to anybody who is an economist and anybody who is a financial analyst or anybody who intends to develop their own projects. And therefore, this is very important. And the project planning and management, it takes about 20% for the assignment and 20% for the test, and also 60% for the final. So you should be getting ready to read by yourself all the time and work hard to know that you are capable of developing these competencies that we shall be discussing throughout the series that we are about to produce to you. So now, regarding the project planning, the history of project management, it started a long time ago. And when we say about a long time ago, we are looking at the age of pre-industrialization, and we are also looking at the age of industrialization. We are also looking at the age of early 20th century. We are looking at the age of mid-20th century, and also the period in 1960 up to 1980, what transpired from the history, what was the key issue, or what were the key issues that happened in relation to project planning and management. And also we look at 1980 and 1980s and beyond, what happened in terms of project management. Is there different ways that has been applied starting from 1980 until today? So at the time, what type of techniques that were being applied? That is the focus for the history. So with the pre-industrialization, you can examine the history what happened before pre-industrialization. What happened? What were the key events? So for the history, you can examine, you can read in your own time regarding the history for those years, how projects were organized from a pre-industrialization stage. You can take one of the example for the history. We see the construction of Egyptians pyramids that are existing until today. And these are, it gives us a lesson what type of projects management was being used. At that time, you see people were cheap and they were organized in the form of religion or military administration to construct Egyptian pyramids. People were forced to do activities to achieve the targets of the pyramids, and that was that time. So the organization structure towards achieving the results was upon religious based, or it was under military administration. So you force the individual to work and achieve, because you could not pay anything. People could be forced to work for free. People were expendable just like any other commodities. That was the time of pre-industrialization. But again, you may also examine in your context of your country, what was the key, what were the key events for projects pre-independency. What were the key issues before we had independence? What were the key issues? For example, in Tanzania, you can start focusing the key projects that were there before independence. So you can see how we organize ourselves and going on like that. And what were the key projects after independence? Even the time of independence itself, when people were organizing to get independence, that was a project. By the time when you had independence, and you could find there is no more struggling again. You're now free. The target was achieved. You could do anything that you want. Now, you see that was after independence. Then you can go to the period of 1967 when Tanzania decided to take over the major means of production to be into the hands of the public. You see the nature of projects, how it was organized towards that. The transformation of the country like Tanzania, it was transformed, and we find at the end of the day, every part of the country, we had a series of industries that was constructed by the government. And at that time, when a major means of production was controlled by the government, we had series of projects. Among the projects, it was coming from manufacturing industries. For example, the general tire industry, the tire was manufactured in Tanzania, and we had machine tools industry, we had Mangora industry, we had so many textiles industry in the country. Every corner, we used not to import products from foreign country because the country was involved into a series of projects. So the structure of how these projects were organized, it will depend on the history. You see, the history and the modality, the history determine the nature of projects to achieve towards the results. And it is different from today. So when you read much what happened during industrialization, there was a lot of innovation after during industrialization age, and projects became more complex. That was the age of industrial revolution, and this industrial revolution dominated so many projects, and therefore it required the so-called creative architecture and engineers, and the most popular people who came in during that time of industrialization, they were Christopher Warren. This is, and also people like Thomas Clifford. You can read it on time regarding the industrialization age. That was very popular for the UK-based projects. You can also understand what's happened the early 20th century. That was the time when Henry Gantt introduced his popular chart. And this, at that time, before that time, we realized that was a failure for so many projects because they were not accountable for time. Not accountable for time, they were not accountable for targets. So Henry Gantt developed a popular chart that was very important, and this popular chart is the one that we are using for so many organizations. They're using this popular chart, and you see that with these projects, with this Henry Gantt chart, we are using in planning, but it has been a historical part. Why it was introduced by Henry Gantt? Because people were not capable of planning properly their plans towards achieving projects. And that's why Henry Gantt came in. We will also discuss in a future series of project planning and management regarding the Henry Gantt chart, which we will know about that one, so you don't need to be worried. The mid-20th century, that was developed during the mid-20th century. At the time, what do we see? There was so many innovations that came in. One of the innovations people started examining on how to avoid wastage of resources and what are the key critical activities that needs to be developed so that it can bring about the impact to projects. And these were people like DuPont who developed the critical path methods. The critical path methods is very popular methods where you find it is important for any planner to examine the sequence of activities and also looking at the critical path and which area to focus during project implementation. So project planner needs to look at those activities that lies within the critical path. They are the ones that manager need to focus on, therefore they are sensitive. So it was the DuPonts who developed the critical path methods in 1957. And you'll find a country like United States, they have been very much successful. Why? Because of that area of DuPont who developed the critical path methods to avoid wastage of resources and looking at critical activities in sequencing form. And again in 1958, the US Navy developed the project evaluation review techniques. This takes into account the uncertainties of completing the projects. That you may find yourself, you may have favorable condition. You need to plan for favorable condition. You also need to plan for unfavorable condition. And the nature is projects are being characterized with uncertainties. And because of that uncertainties, you need to plan for probability. So planning for probability of achieving or not achieving, but you are spending resources. The US Navy developed the PET techniques. That's the project evaluation review technique. And for them, they've developed that one, and we find many people are using the same in order to achieve good results. In 1960s up to 1980s, there has been so many concepts being developed in line with projects. Among these concepts is the end value management that was introduced, and this one putting emphasis on project planning and control techniques, project organization forms, and the role of project managers has emerged. So you find nowadays we are talking of project manager. Project manager is the most important person in any projects. If you don't have a good project manager, you realize you'll not be successful in achieving the results. So nowadays we have to use, there is introduction of computer. The computer simplify the business when it comes to projects. The computer is the center for everything. The computer can schedule. The computer can help you to sequence activities and come up with critical path methods. The computer can help you to develop the path analysis. Computer can compute the standard deviation. Computer can determine or can examine which labor, which resources is being applied. So this is the modern technology. The computer can help to control projects through working online without physical contact. So you can control your resources, you can control your human resources, you can control your financial resources. Even if you have 1,000 workers working at once, then computer can help you. This is the brief. As we keep on going, you realize the history keep on changing depending on the problems that people are facing in order to achieve the desired results. Now, that is just a brief. So what I would suggest, you can go back in your country and examine how key projects of your nation was being carried out. So in this context, when we talk about projects, that is an overview regarding the history. Now, before we go to another session, let me also question you. What do you understand by projects? What do we mean when we say projects? You see, project is a start to finish. Project means start to finish. So you have to start, you have to finish. So, but this period of starting and finishing, there must be a scope, there must be cost, there must be time, there must be quality that needs to be controlled. And that is projects. So projects is a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product or service that you need to know. Projects, if you are talking about projects, you need to know that you need to achieve specific objectives. And you need to know time is very scarce resources. You need to know that you need to coordinate some activities. You need to coordinate people. You should not frustrate the team, but work together to achieve the best results of your projects. Then we continue.